What if you could lead more effectively and go home on time? Welcome to the Lightbulb. I'm Zoe Thompson, leadership and performance coach, and each week I bring you 3 practical insights from my work helping impact-driven leaders transform from reactive to intentional leadership so they can finish work on time and take guilt-free time off, creating success that feels as good as it looks. Let's jump in. Hello. Episode 21. I'm going to be talking about things that have come up in my client sessions, and they were only yesterday. All of my client sessions were booked in one day this week. So it's all very fresh in my mind, which is going to be good and hopefully means that it will flow nice and easily because I can still remember what the conversation was. It's been a good week. I have had a very busy week. Lots of marketing for the next Elevate Your Efficiency program. The doors close in 3 weeks. So I have been very busy trying to get out there, let people know that it's happening, let people know what it is, and also to invite people to the workshop that I'm running next week, which is on delegation. So if you catch this podcast before Thursday the 19th and you are interested in having a bit of a taster of what it's like to be on a workshop with me, then pop me a message and I will send you an invite and you'll be very welcome to join us. It is not a sales webinar. It is a workshop that I run every month for my clients and for those that are in the leadership community. So this is a great opportunity for people to come in and experience a workshop, experience what it's like to work with me. I don't normally open the doors. I do it every so often just to give people a bit of a taster. Otherwise, how do you know? And you can absorb the free content, but it doesn't actually tell you what it would be like to work on a program with me. So if you catch this before Thursday the 19th, and you are interested, you would like to learn more about how to delegate in a way that helps develop your team, in a way that helps you to create a confident and self-sufficient team, let me know and I will send you the details. Okay, I'm going to get straight into it rather than share more details about my week, because if you have the newsletter, then you already know what I've been up to. So we'll get straight into the light bulbs for this week. First light bulb, the fly on the wall learning strategy. How do you develop your skills if your manager won't let you learn? This was a really interesting conversation that came up with a client this week, and not one that comes up very often. So it was an interesting one to help the client explore and see what their options were and how they wanted to proceed with it. So the scenario is that we've got an individual who very successful, very good at what they do, but is looking at exploring other areas within the same industry, but other areas. So this might sound familiar to you. Now, if you've got a line manager who doesn't want you to move on, and some line managers we know do gatekeep their high performing, productive, successful staff. They don't want them going on elsewhere. They can gatekeep that person's development and not be very supportive of the things that that individual wants to do. And so although that individual might bring it up in a one-to-one, they find that actually the right things are said, but things aren't progressed. And in a more toxic scenario, not only are things not progressed, then sometimes things are actively blocked. Passively, not great behavior, very hard to call out when it's done in a particular way, but it does happen. And we know it happens. So if you are an individual in this scenario and you want to develop your skill set, you want to expand, perhaps horizontally, or maybe even vertically, you want the next post up from you, you want to progress to a more senior position, how do you learn and develop if you don't have a manager that supports that? So yesterday in the session, we were talking about this and we were exploring the different options that this individual might have within their workplace. Who did they have in their circle that they could speak to in a confidential way? And who did they trust that they could have these conversations with? And if the number of people that they could trust were limited, what were their other options? And this was when we started to talk about how you can be a fly on the wall learner. We can learn in a training environment. We can learn in a more formal environment. We can do attachments. We can go and spend time with people to learn what they do, how they do, and why they do. But if that is not available to us, then observational learning is an option. We can observe the people that we get to work with to see what they do, how they do. We can ask questions. We can be curious. We can help ourselves by asking different questions of the individuals who do that job that perhaps we might have a bit of an interest in. But also, and in particular from a leadership perspective, we learn a lot of our leadership behaviors and skills through the people that we work with, the people that we work alongside, the people that we report into, but also our peers and other people who are more senior to us. Now, we can have a conversation. We can have a conversation to say that we'd be really interested. We would love to be mentored by you. We would love to learn how you do, why you do, what you do. If that is not an option available to us, then increasing our level of curiosity and increasing how we observe and notice other people can still add to our learning. It still adds to our experience. How often do you hear people say they do a training course and the course is great, but actually they learn a lot from other people on the course as well. They learned from shared experiences. They learned from observing and noticing how other people engage and respond and show up. So this is a great way to be able to do it. Whether you want to call it fly on the wall learning, whether you want to call it observational learning, you are tapping into what you can learn in these environments that you are already in. Now, some of you might see that you do this already, that you are switched on. In meetings, you're not just there for the agenda and the actions. You're there to learn from those who are in a more senior position. How do they chair the meeting? How do they manage challenge? How do they bring everybody into the room and make sure that everybody gets heard and everybody gets the opportunity to contribute? We can learn every day. We can learn all day, every day. And we can learn a lot without having to go through formal training. Now, formal training is great. It has its purpose, very clear learning objectives, very clear learning outcomes. Obviously, I'm going to say that. We can also learn day to day, and we do not want to miss out on those opportunities. So we don't always need permission to learn. We don't always need a formal course or something that we need to sign up to and attend. We can use the everyday learning that is available to us by being more strategic in our observations and perhaps a little bit more disciplined in staying quiet and observing and absorbing what matters and what we want to learn from. Lightbulb 2. How do we create accountability without overwhelming our team? This came up through talking about having one-to-ones. Now, one-to-ones are incredibly important. We need to sit down with our staff, whether that's informal or more formal, whether it's a monthly check-in or perhaps more frequently, maybe less frequently, dependent on the demands and pace of the environment that you are working in. What we want to do in our one-to-ones is ensure that we ask enough questions to ascertain what that individual wants and needs, and also that we show up and talk through what it is that we need to talk through in the one-to-ones. It needs to be a fairly balanced meeting or conversation with both parties contributing. One-to-ones can take up a lot of calendar space. It can be a challenge for leaders, and we want to make sure that they're not the first to drop off when things get busy. We also want to make sure that they are productive and effective so that they are best use of the time that we have and also the time for that individual as well. We want them to feel seen and to be heard, and we want them to be able to talk through what it is that they need and how we can support them to do that. For those faster paced environments, you might have a team meeting at the beginning of the week to set the pace, set the momentum, set the priorities. You might have some one-to-one check-ins that are faster paced, less in terms of the amount of time that you spend with them, but where you want to make sure that they're doing what they said they were going to do and that actually they are taking accountability without you needing to micromanage. And for some people, that's quite a tough balance. There's an element where there's a tipping point where we go from being supportive and setting direction and making sure that people are doing what they said they were going to do. And we step into micromanagement and potentially risk taking away their accountability and them showing up to do what they said they need to do. In the coaching session, we were talking about how do we balance this? How do we help and support our teams to be able to prioritize, to make better decisions? What do we need to communicate to make sure that that information is clear? Most importantly, how do we do it in a way that doesn't overwhelm them? We don't want our team to be drowning in competing priorities. We don't want to be that person that says everything is urgent, everything is important, everything is a priority. So we need to help our teams and the individuals within our teams to understand not only how to prioritize, but also how to deprioritize, because not everything can be urgent. So if we want them to prioritize certain tasks and activities in that week, we need to help them to understand what they need to deprioritize to create that space for it. A very short and sharp one-to-one can help both you as the leader and your team member get very clear on the focus, get very clear on the priorities, and also recognize what good looks like, what needs to be done, and for them to hold that accountability. We want to eliminate any ambiguity about what good looks like, what success looks like, and when they need to have the good and successful thing done by. Open questions are great for this. Open questions help us to ascertain the what, the why, and the how. We need closed questions to determine the when. So when we have these conversations, we want to make sure that we are not taking the work off of them. We are not rolling up our sleeves and helping them to fix. We are allowing them to hold on to the tasks that they have, and we are supporting them or offering support to help them to achieve that task. So some of the questions that might be helpful at the end of the one-to-one, and the two questions that we identified in the session yesterday: what is the one thing you want done and off the list this week? So that helps the individual to get very clear on the top priorities. If they only get one thing done off that list, and let's hope it's slightly more than one thing, but if they only get one thing done off that list, what does it need to be? And then the follow-up question: what do you need from me to help you to do that? So just one thing, not three things, not five things, the one thing. This forces them to make that decision around what the priority is. They are saying it out loud, which helps create that shared accountability, because you're hearing them say it, but also you are offering them that question: what do you need from me to help you to do that? So it gives you the opportunity to support them if they need it, but not micromanaging. And they hold ownership, they hold responsibility, they stay accountable for getting it done. And if they are not able to identify the one thing, then you've unlocked or discovered the clarity problem that you then need to address. So that then means you can go into a series of questions. We want coaching questions here to help them to explore what is the priority, what is the one thing, and get very clear on that. And if they are missing information that means it is difficult for them to make that decision, then you have that responsibility to make sure that information is cascaded in a clear way that they then understand how to prioritize. So the two questions: what's the one thing you want done and off the list this week? And what do you need from me to help you to do that? And Lightbulb 3, fire prevention versus firefighting. This is the shift. And this is a big shift for a lot of people, recognizing what does fire prevention look like at different levels of leadership. If you have moved from one level of leadership to another, or maybe you have moved into your first level of leadership, checking in that you are not firefighting. Your role as a leader is to clear the pathway and make it as easy as possible for your teams to show up and do an amazing job. Your job is to make sure they've got the tools, the resources, the skills, the knowledge, the experience, the confidence to get in there and get the job done. You are looking ahead to see what might get in the way of that happening and removing as many of those blockers as possible. And if you cannot remove the blocker, your responsibility is to make sure they are equipped to fight the fire when it happens. Now, I'm not a firefighter. I haven't worked with the fire service. My understanding is that the person with the white hat, who is the leader of the firefighters, never goes into the building. They never go in and firefight. They are always on the outside of the building and they are managing the situation. Their responsibility is to manage the people and manage the situation for a successful outcome. They do not go in the building. Now, if I'm wrong on that, somebody please correct me because I use this example quite a lot. So if I'm wrong on that, let me know. My understanding is if you have the white hat, you do not go into the building. You manage the people, you manage the incident. And this is where intentional leadership comes in and replaces reactive leadership. When you are intentional in your leadership, you are looking ahead. You are trying to find the blockers or the things that are going to get in the way of your team being able to do a good job. You're looking ahead. You are being very intentional about what you need to do. You do not want to be in a crisis response phase or mode all of the time. You want to be looking ahead to see what needs to be done. Now, this works in all industries. This works in all scenarios. So whether you are in your first role as a leader, you are leaving the yellow hat behind and now wearing the white hat. So you need to ask that question, what do my team need from me to help make their jobs as easy as possible? Now, it might be in your one-to-ones, you ask them that question. What do you need from me to make your job easier? We need to be looking ahead. Thinking ahead. We are horizon scanning. We are looking into the future to see where we can prevent the fires. And if we can't prevent the fires, what do we need to do to make sure that our teams are as equipped as possible to deal with the fires? The more we prevent, the less fires there are. So this might be checking your resources levels a couple of weeks ahead, making sure that everybody's training is reviewed before it expires. Those that are under a qualification process, making sure that you're giving them that support to make sure that they have the time and space to work on those qualifications and get them signed off as soon as possible. It might be making sure they've got the tools, the equipment. Maybe you are managing the staffing levels for the anticipated peak periods. Fire prevention feels long-winded, but it's productive because we're eliminating future problems. And the more future problems we eliminate, the easier things get. And the less your team are coming to you, and the more time your team have to do what you want them to be doing, rather than firefighting. So the best leaders aren't firefighters. They are the best at fire prevention. And we've seen this, certainly for those of us that are in the UK, the fire service here spend a lot of time going out fitting smoke alarms, checking fire systems, because the work is up front and it saves a whole ton of problems further down the line. Your team don't need you to put a yellow hat on and run into the building with them. They need you to be outside supporting, directing and leading. And an even better option, the fire didn't happen in the first place because you saw what the risk was and you removed or reduced that risk for them. Those are my 3 light bulbs for this week. I would love to hear what has resonated with you, what you've taken away, and most importantly, what you will now do as a result. Whatever you've taken from this episode of the podcast, what's one small action that you can take? Keep it really simple and give it a very specific scenario or situation that you can implement it in the next week. It's great that you're all listening to this. I love the fact that people are telling me that they are listening to the podcast and they're loving the ideas that they are taking away. I want to make sure that you are turning that into action. Let me know what you're taking away and let me know how you're turning that into action too. Have a great week ahead, and I will be back for a next episode next week. And those are your 3 takeaways for this week. Before you go, ask yourself, what's my light bulb moment from this? And now that I know what I know, what will I do differently? Choose one action, however small, and commit to it. That's how overwhelmed and reactive becomes aligned and intentional. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next week on the next episode of The Lightbulb.